Now, the problem is an investor will rather go to a country where you get 5–10% and do your project, within 2–3 years, rather than come into a country where, like, for instance, it will take you about 18 months to 24 months to build a generating plant, a small size power generating plant. Take or leave it, within 1 year, you should finish with the preliminary processes of studies and what have you. And therefore, you can do your project within 3 to 4 years, maximum. In Nigeria, you are on licensing for 5 years. In Nigeria, you are on environmental approval for the next 2 years. Things that should not take more than 3 months. So when you have to do paperwork for a longer time than even when you will implement the project, no investor wants to waste his time in such a country. But this is a beautiful country for investment. So first, we will improve the ease of doing business, and we will target to net about 5% of global infrastructure funds, which will be almost about $3 to $4 trillion in 10 years. We will integrate the diasporal community of Nigeria, which is already doing well, by the way, in investment to Nigeria, but this has not been done in an organized manner. In 2013, remittances to Nigeria was up to $27 billion, almost competing with the revenue from oil. In a very organized manner, you could up that by almost four times and be netting about $100 billion in remittances to this economy. And that would be $1 trillion. So you already have, arithmetically, an estimate of about $4 to $5 trillion that can come into this economy by doing what you need to do to make investment become an easy thing rather than a huge and Herculean task. My focus.
This will have impact, of course, on unemployment, which is the other side of it.
It will create jobs. And thank you for mentioning that. The net effect of it is that we target to create 5 million jobs every year. And you really needed that because there is huge unemployment, particularly among young people right now in the country. The last statistic shows that it's 36% among young people. Crazy, huge. And this is the underlying effect of the massive upheavals that you have in the land. All right. Youth employment is very, very dangerous when it is very high. As far back as a young lad, I read this work by Angels, the role labor played in the transition of ape to man. That was a classic. In sociology, it was not just an economic test.
That's right.
Because when somebody is employed, that's when you become a man. When you are not employed, you are a little bit better than an animal. Because what employment does for you is that it organizes your thinking faculty. It brings you to a level of discipline. Okay. Then it imposes on you some conduct. Then you also begin to know what is called value. All right. So it's more than, employment is more than getting a source of income, revenue or a sort of income. It organizes you as a human being. And that's why you see that people who have never been employed are very difficult to discipline in any situation. You can almost not get them to do any other thing that requires organization because they have never worked before. And when you have somebody who has never worked before, either business or as a worker, and you put such a person in a position of responsibility, he will be so indisciplined because he has never been used to any disciplined organization. So At the bottom of the massive social upheavals that you have in Nigeria is also unemployment, a lot of rascally behavior. And to tame that, of course, the private sector is the best platform to create jobs. Sustainable jobs, not dole out jobs. Sustainable employment. Employments that create value, that will also generate there. And why there is a lot of complaint, by government, they lack revenue and all that, is that you cannot impose taxes when there is no economic activity. And if you have simply refused to perform your own primary role of creating a conducive environment for economic activity to take place on a mass scale, you cannot be talking about imposing taxes, taxing worth. You can only impose taxes on economic activity. And if you have failed in your own responsibility to create that environment for such activity, you cannot generate revenue.
Now, when you talk about the conducive environment, the other part of it will, in our own context, that is the Nigerian context today, will be security. Yeah. Because I guess you alluded to it earlier when you talk about upheavals everywhere. Part of those upheavals are pure criminality. Yes. But there are those who have linked that criminality to the fact that those people didn't choose to be criminals. They became criminals because they had no other options.
Absolutely.
But then you have other upheavals that have to do with political will and decisions. Yeah. The Niger Delta crisis over resource control and environmental pollution and so on is there. The insurgency in the northeast, as exemplified by Boko Haram. The battle between herdsmen and farmers over arable land for farming and for livestock is there. Then, of course, you have things like banditry, kidnappings, and all that. Now, in terms of that aspect, the security aspect, what would you be doing?
You are spot on, and I really want to acknowledge your depth on this issue. Not every time you come across reporters with this level of depth, and I must compliment you.
Thank you.
At the bottom of this upheavals, we said, serious issues of economy, competition for resources. And I did global security as one of the courses in the master's class in England. And that's what global affairs is all about. A little bit of international law, a little bit of international security, a little bit of international finance and economics, etc., etc. And the way to deal with insecurity is to tackle issues that are the primary causes of insecurity. That's the way to deal with it on a sustainable basis. It's not just military actions, all right? You have to deal with the underlying reasons for those issues, and therefore, the program of economic intervention is also going to contribute in reducing and addressing some of these issues at their roots.